Evening, and thank you for attending the June 6, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting of the Fullerton Joint Union High School District. Appreciate you being here. We will now reconvene our regular meeting, and the flag salute will be led by our superintendent, Dr. Steve McLaughlin.
Thank you, President Foley.
Thank you. Earlier this evening, the board met in closed session, but there is no actionable item to report on at this time. And we've not completed our discussion on these items. We will meet again in closed session after this regular session and report out any action taken when the meeting is reconvened to regular session later this evening. In the meantime, I'd like to ask, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? It's been moved. Second. Moved by Marilyn, second by Chester. And any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Second of all, is there an approval of the minutes of the May 9th, 2023 board meeting?
Move approval. Oh, sorry, Chester.
Go ahead. I'll do a second.
Okay. Motion by Lauren Klotzker, second by Chester Jang. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All righty. Is there any correspondence that board members would like to share at this time? All right. Seeing none, I'd like to call on the superintendent to introduce our representatives from the schools for the school reports.
Thank you, President Foley, members of the board, audience members. Thanks for being here. This is our final school reports of the school year as graduation was held successfully last week. So we will start at Buena Park High School and Dr. Berg.
All right. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, and members of the board. So it was a great ending to a great school year, and thank you, Dr. Calhoun and Mr. Hernandez, for coming to our graduation. It was super exciting. Obviously, the excitement and energy in the stadium was amazing, and if you saw my latest Instagram reel, the ceremony ended with everybody singing the alma mater one last time, and you could literally hear it outside the stadium. So it was just a super epic ending to a graduation, and felt really good for staff and for everybody that was in attendance. So leading into that, we had a lot of opportunities to recognize our students and staff towards the end of the year, and so we recognized our senior award recipient with a really cool ceremony in the stadium. Millions of dollars of scholarships by the class of 23 capped off that evening, and so it was really awesome to see that. We also brought a TC Burger, it's a local food truck, for an afternoon where we had 400 student recipients that we gave lunch to. Spirit Awards, Leadership Awards, Growth Awards. We honor our top 200 GPA improvements from one year to the next. So sometimes it's students that don't necessarily get recognized in other ways, but they got free burgers. And then our top 50. So we were recognizing our 26 to 50 because they don't get their own ceremony. So it was just kind of a fun way to recognize a lot of different students. And it was a big hit on campus. Around the middle of the month, I was able to host a few dozen principals from South Korea. They were on a Southern California tour and stopped by Buena Park High School. So got to talk pedagogy, whole child education. They absolutely loved the campus. So obviously it's a testament to our board and you, our taxpayers, who have put money into the upgrades for the school. And they were just absolutely amazed at the experience that our kids get to do on a daily basis. So really cool cultural experience. Once again, we partnered with the city, so around the city of Buena Park, you'll see the Distinguished Scholar banners. So it's a great way to celebrate our top 25 kids and where they're going next year. And then kudos to Mr. Cuevas, our counselors, and our front office staff. This was probably one of the smoothest kickoffs to summer school that I've seen, and so last couple days have been very smooth and easy. And then lastly, I just want to give a big thanks to all of my classified and certificated staff members. Their continued push towards excellence this year. We had such a successful year, so I hope they're all resting up and ready for another big year next year, and thank you, and that concludes my board report.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. From Fullerton High School, Mrs. Rubio. soon to be.
Almost.
She's ABD. Okay, for clarification, you're right. Mrs. Soon to be Dr. Rubio successfully walked in USC graduation last month, which is why she wasn't here. So let's give her a round of applause. And I actually get the honor of serving on her dissertation committee, and I believe in about 4 or 5 weeks we're going to finalize that process. So yes, Mrs./Dr. Rubio.
Almost. We needed graduation to be done, and so now we can finalize this process. So thank you. And good evening, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, members of the board. We have ended the year in a very great way at Fullerton. We had a wonderful graduation, and thank you, Ms. Klasker, for being there, and Dr. Zener. I know it made it even more special that your own kids were there too, and we got to celebrate them as well. So thank you very much. And our spring sport season ended in a very big way. Not only did all of our spring sports make it to the playoffs, but the ladies took it all the way. The boys kept trying, and the ladies got it done. And so we went all the way to state. It was a beautiful drive to Chula Vista this Saturday, and we came back a winning team all state. So I'm glad that they're here today with their family, and we get to celebrate them. And soon the city of Fullerton will also be celebrating them as well. So that's going to be exciting. More news on that to come. We have begun our summer school as well, and the Summer Bridge program for our incoming 9th graders has been a big hit lately. Our incoming students are being welcomed by teachers, coaches, link crew. They've had special tours and presentations by many members of our staff, and will continue to do so over the next couple weeks. We even had themed days. It was Hawaiian Day yesterday. It was Nacho Tuesday today, and we'll have red, white, and blue tomorrow, followed by 80s Thursday. So needless to say, the freshmen are having a great time and being introduced to our Fullerton fun already. So that's exciting news. And I do want to take this opportunity also to thank our teachers and staff for a great school year. It was definitely a year in which we had to regain our teaching stamina and build up our resiliency again. And the Fullerton staff did an amazing job and really helped support our students through this transition as well. And we had great results from our brand new student support time. And I couldn't be more proud of our staff for all of the support that they extended to students and the flexibility in these last few years. And we're hoping for a great 23-24 school year. So with that, thank you very much, and that concludes my board report.
Thank you, Mrs. Soon-to-be Dr. Rubio. From La Habra High School, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, members of the board. The school year ended with a lot of excitement as students successfully finished their finals, and the class of 2023 graduated on the evening of May 31st. We had Reagan Arroyo, Julianne Kanda, Brent Grantham, Celeste Rangel, and Ben Green, who were outstanding student speakers, who were supported by our staff members of Ms. Vargas, Ms. Ryan, and Mr. Neaves in the weeks leading up to the graduation speeches. Graduation was a team effort from our NRJOTC, our choir and band, who had phenomenal performances, but as well as our classified and certificate and district staff behind the scenes, making it really memorable. And then we had 474 students walk across the stage, and we thank Mr. Hernandez and Dr. Jen for greeting them. And I don't know how their eyes were able to withstand the flashing pictures. I know they saw a bunch of stars probably for the rest of the night, but I want to thank you both for greeting our kids as they got their diplomas. The Highlanders also want to give a special thanks to our community, the La Habra Rotary and Advance, led by Mr. Fred Lentz, for their continued support of all our students in our community, but really for their scholarship opportunities, helping our families maneuver the college and university support that they needed financially. That's been a wonderful partnership that we've had with them. And then finally, I'd like to thank our La Habra classified and certificate staff for a very memorable year and their support for our students. And in particular, I'd like to thank Mrs. Sue Brick Ashley for her service. After 34 years, she's retiring, or she has retired, and we wish her the best in retirement. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. From La Vista La Sierra Schools, Mrs. Leana.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, members of the board. I will start my report off with a look back at the successful end-of-year celebrations we held for our La Vista La Sierra students, starting with the La Sierra Adult Transitions Program's heartfelt Certificate of Completion ceremony, which honored the accomplishments of 26 graduates who are moving on to their adult placements. Next, our Celebration of Excellence event was held the Tuesday before graduation, honoring our senior scholarship and award winners. In-N-Out burgers were served by our very own teachers, all of whom worked extremely hard to give our families a chance to really celebrate their students. Thank you to our Troy neighbors as well for letting us host the event in their South Gym. And finally, graduation was held at the lovely Buena Park High School Stadium on Wednesday, May 31st. We had a record-breaking number of graduates this year, which created a super celebratory vibe for the class of 2023. Thank you to all of the board members and district administrators, and of course, the amazing La Vista La Sierra staff for participating in these events and for supporting our students throughout this whole year. Moving into the present, our first 2 days of summer school for our La Vista and La Sierra Opportunity, iSierra Online Academy, senior non-grad, and adult transition students has gone very well. And I'll be giving you a total summer school rundown when we meet again in July. Thank you, and that concludes the La Vista La Sierra report.
Thank you, Mrs. Leana. From Sonora High School, Assistant Principal, Instruction Operations, APIO, Mr. Cazares.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, members of the board. For Sonora High School, the push to the end of the school year was fast and furious as students completed AP and IB testing, took finals, attended awards ceremonies, and for the class of 2023, attended senior activities like Senior Sunset and Senior Breakfast that allowed for some final memories together. Crossing the finish line for many was a tremendous accomplishment and an opportunity to reflect on and appreciate those that assisted them in their academic journey. The celebration culminated with the commencement exercises for the class of 2023 on June 1st, when we honored and recognized those students that contributed and are a valuable part of the Sonora Raider family. 384 students were recognized, and we thank Dr. Jang and Dr. Atkinson for their contribution to the evening by welcoming students as they crossed the stage. The festivities were highlighted by a memorable speech by Dr. Jang, student speeches, and musical performances that made the evening a perfect way to send off our graduating seniors. It truly was an emotional and exciting night for our students and their families as they completed their journey. This summer has already proved to be a busy one as we welcome 442 students to summer school that began yesterday. We're sending a contingent of our team to the PLC conference for the remainder of this week, and we look forward to welcoming our newest Raiders, the class of 2027, for the summer bridge beginning next week, where they will be able to get acclimated with the campus and culture while also building relationships with their peers. We're excited for this opportunity to lean into our student leaders as they help build for our future. It's an exciting time to be a Raider, and we look forward to the opportunity to plan and prepare while also taking time to recharge and spend time with loved ones this summer. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cazares. From Sunny Hills High School, Mr. Weinrich.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, President Foley, members of the board, Dr. McLaughlin. As the school year came to a close for our Lancers, we were able to celebrate both our graduating class of 2023 as well as all of our Lancers in many ways over the past few weeks. To begin with, close to 600 students attended the final stag dance of the year in our quad. Then we had the annual Physics Boat Day, which was enjoyed by all, including our board president and myself, despite the fact that our boats didn't make it all the way. We also held the first ever ROP Video Production Film Festival, showcasing Lancer student video creations on the big screen at Buena Park Krikorian Theater. And then finally, ASB put together an amazing end-of-the-year slideshow assembly that highlighted so many of the engaging activities and events that our Lancers were involved in throughout the year. For our seniors, their final day of classes ended with the annual paper toss in the quad, as our students were able to celebrate together. Then our Lancer seniors were able to continue their celebration with their senior breakfast, then right before grad night at Disneyland, followed by a wonderful graduation ceremony last week. As their time at Sunny Hills comes to a close, I wanted to highlight a few of our outstanding seniors. First, our two Golden Lancer recipients for the year were Giselle Suestegui and Jacob Miriolis. The Golden Lancer is a senior nominated and chosen by staff for their leadership, character, contributions, and positive impact at Sunny Hills during their time there. Giselle was a valuable contributor to Avid, Accolade, our newspaper, Link Crew, and was one of the our two Angel Baseball Scholarship recipients. She'll be attending USC in the fall. Jacob was involved with Epic, IB, KOFA, and volleyball. Plus, if you come on our campus, you can see a number of his murals around campus as well. He will be attending Cal Berkeley's engineering program in the fall. Another outstanding Lancer senior is Matthias Brown, who was not only a CIF champion in both soccer and football at Sunny Hills, but was also named the 2023 Freeway League and Okada Male Athlete of the Year for football and soccer. Matthias, who now holds the record for most goals scored in Sunny Hills history, was also nominated just recently for the Gatorade Boys Soccer Player of the Year for the state of California. We're really proud of all three of these outstanding Lancers and look forward to great things in their future. After it's been nothing really but a normal 4 years for this class of 2023, we couldn't be more proud of how these students persevered and came out stronger at the end, and we wanted to congratulate our class of 2023 one more time. This concludes the Lance report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weinrich. From Troy High School, Dr. Minster.
Thank you very much, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, and members of the board. We've concluded the 2022-23 school year, and it was successful and rewarding for our Troy family. I'm so grateful to our school staff, students, parents, and our entire Fullerton Joint Union High School District community for being the family that has created an environment for all of us to have a truly fantastic school year. Congratulations to our retirees. Congratulations to all the students and coaches being recognized tonight, and congratulations to the class of 2023. This has been a truly wonderful class, a special class, and we were so fortunate to be part of their high school journey, culminating in a truly wonderful graduation ceremony last Thursday night. Preparations for the fall and the 2023-24 school year are well underway, and now that summertime is here, all of us are looking forward to taking time to relax, unwind, and spend time with family and friends. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Minster. President Foley?
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments? Okay. Now comes the highlight of the evening, and that accommodations and recognitions. And I'd like to call on Dr. Ed Atkinson. I'm surprising Dr. Zener here for a moment. To introduce our new executive assistant to the superintendent, Deanna Oseguera.
Thank you, President Foley, members of the board, Dr. McLaughlin, guests. Tonight it's my privilege to introduce our new executive assistant to the superintendent and board of trustees, Ms. Diana Oseguera. If we could have a nice round of applause.
Linda gives her a standing ovation.
Diana will be replacing Mrs. Harder, who will be retiring in July, and Diane is here tonight to observe and learn the tricks of the trade, begin to. Diana has served most recently as the principal's secretary at Buena Park High School. That's why Mr. Berg's crying over there right now. So, since 2016, and she is known for her skills in interacting with staff, students, parents, and the community. It's a real gift that she has. Prior to joining the district, she worked at Disney Resorts, where she served from 1995 to 2016 as the workforce manager resource specialist. And in this role, she was responsible for mentoring and training each of the new generation of Disney cast members. She earned an associate's degree from Orange Coast College, and we are very, very happy to have her join the Education Center. Do you have anyone in attendance with you this evening? You do not. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, Linda Harder, for all your support, and board members. And also, Dr. Berg, thank you for all your support and partnership through all these years at Buena Park High School. Thank you, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, and thank you, Deanna. We're happy to have you on board. All right, next I'm calling on Dr. Zener.
I'm getting my steps in. Thank you, President Foley, members of the board, and Dr. McLaughlin. Tonight, we are recognizing, you can hear them out in our quad, our spring sports student athletes, along with our Troy Science Olympiad team and a very, very special Fullerton softball team. So, it's my pleasure to introduce our Freeway League president and principal of Sunny Hills High School, Mr. Craig Weinrich.
Thank you, Dr. Zener. All right. All I get to do is introduce each of the athletic directors who will come and introduce their teams and get a chance to recognize each of them for their accomplishments. So to begin with, we're going to start with Buena Park High School, and I'm going to introduce our athletic director for Buena Park, Mr. Michael Terry.
Hello all. Thank you, President Foley, Board of Trustees, and Dr. McLaughlin. We are here to honor our Buena Park swim team, both for boys and our girls. We had, for the first time in a while, CIF finals. We finished 5th in the medley relay with our girls, 5th in 100 girls fly. Jaden Cervantes, we finished 5th in CIF. for our girls 500 freestyle. Fifth in boys, the 4x50 relay. Sixth place in the girls 4x1 relay. The athletes that we have with us today, or that place very high, is Elijah Trinidad, Isaac Roscoe. Still saying their names.
Good job, Elijah.
Liam Gallego. He's in Tahiti right now, so I still said his name though. His mom's watching. And Jose Cervantes. On the girls' side, we had Jaden Cervantes, Brianna Mora, Heaven Contreras, Brenda Ochoa, and Selena Hernandez.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Oh my gosh. Good job, Randa. Congratulations. They're cold. They said they just got out of the pool. That's why they're cold. I heard one of the girls say that, yeah.
Great. Congratulations, Buena Park. Next, for Fullerton High School, I have their athletic director, Joe Olivas.
Thank you. Board members, principals, thank you for having us here today. The first group we'd like to introduce to you from Fullerton High School is from our swim team. And we had 3 finalists. 2 of them couldn't make it, but we do have one special young lady here. Her name is Sydney Cruz. She was a CIF finalist, finished 5th place in the 500 freestyle and 7th place in the 200 IM. We're extremely happy because she's only a freshman. So there's only more good things to come from her. This is Sydney Cruz and her coach, David Bach.
Good job. We get to watch you for more years. Good job,
I got
Coach.
one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's not here. It's dive. It's dive. No. Yes, ma'am.
Trophy, say.
We have one more from our swim dive program. This young lady, unfortunately, her mother let me know she couldn't make it, but they are watching. This young lady is Abigail Ekstrom, our senior, and our back-to-back CIF dive champion for Division III. Abigail was the dive champion for this year and last year. She is also a state qualifier 2 years in a row. She is a 2-time NISCA All-American, and she will be attending and competing for Penn State next year. Just wanted to make sure we mentioned her. We're very proud of her and all her efforts she gave to Fullerton High School. And thank you to Coach Bach for mentoring and working with her all these years. Our next group, and the jewel of our crown, is our FUHF softball team. Our softball team has come a long way in just 2 years. Led by our new head coach in his second year, Trevor Holton, and assistant coach Shu Todoroki, our girls have come from missing the playoffs for a few years to being CIF Division IV sectional finalists, and greatly, the CIF State Division III champions. We are the first team in Orange County to earn this honor. We are represented here by all the girls, which I will name out right now. First up is, if I can get this right, Annalise Barrios, Zoe Batista, Amelia Burns. Okay. Got you. Charlotte Edwards. Ariel Enriquez. Alexis Galvan. Isabel Gomez. Juliana Ibarra. Malaya Majam Finch. Alessandra Mejia. Andrea Montes de Oca. Haley Nelson. Ava Paquin. Maya Rodriguez. Tiana Salcido. Emma Thorson. Brooke Thompsons. Ashton Vasquez. Malia Vera. And that's all of our girls. I would especially like to thank our two seniors, Alessandra and Haley. You have been through so much with our program. Thank you for sticking out with us and getting us to this point. Thank you.
Congratulations, Fullerton. Next from La Habra High School, our athletic director, Paul Caffrey.
Thank you, President Foley, Board of Trustees, and Dr. McLaughlin. Tonight we have from our boys swim team, head coach Mark Chalette. Come on out, Coach Chalette. For our CIF finalists 200 medley, 13th place overall. We have Carlos Gandar, who couldn't attend tonight, Aiden Cisneros, Ansel Villa, and Cruz Fernandez. Also part of that team, who was a CIF finalist for the 100 breaststroke, was Aiden Cisneros with a 17th place overall in CIF finals. Congratulations, Aiden. And lastly, in dive, our first diver in over 20 years at CIF finals, Eric Lopez with a 5th place overall, only a freshman. So we're excited about that. Congratulations, Eric. Thank you.
Congratulations, La Habra High School. Next up, we have Sonora High School Athletic Director Arlie Kearney.
Thank you, Mr. Weinrich. Thank you, President Fowley, Board of Trustees, and Dr. McLaughlin. It is my honor to present a couple of Sonora's CIF finalists from our spring season. I would like to first congratulate our track and field coach, Coach Paul Quixote. Coach Quixote did an amazing job this year with our track group. He led our boys to their first Freeway League championship in over 20 years. And he coached these two tremendous student athletes right here behind me to the CIF finals. So our first student athlete is Alex Vilma. Alex was Freeway League champion in both the 1 mile and the 2 mile. He competed in the CIF finals in the 2 mile, running an incredible 9-minute, 29-second 2 mile. Alex will be moving on to attend Cal State Fullerton in the fall and will be continuing his athletic pursuits in both cross country and track. Our next one is Mia Chavarine. Mia was a 3-time Freeway League champion in high jump. This year she also finished second in the triple jump and was a CIF finalist in the high jump, jumping over 5 feet. She will be moving on next year to attend Cal State San Marcos and will be also continuing her athletic pursuits in track and field. That's Mia. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, Sonora High School. Good job, guys. Congratulations. Good job. And next up, we have Sunny Hills High School Athletic Director Paul Jones.
Good evening. Up first, we have boys golf, coached by Scott Enrico. Our boys golf program was the CIF Division I champions. Present, we have Coach Enrico, Jonathan Jung, and Caleb Kim. So these guys were part of our CIF Division I golf championship, as well as being the undefeated Freeway League champions for 19 years in a row, and they were first place in the Walnut Mustang tournament. Next, we have Sunny Hills Esports, coached by Sonia Joyce. Okay, present, we have Cole Sass. Okay, Miles Loam, Garv Jane, Seungju Liu Lee, and Sungju Jung. So our esports team was League of Legends CIF champions, and they started off with a field of 64 teams, and the Lancers beat La Quinta in the championship to be CIF champions for League of Legends in the Gold Division. And Sunny Hills Swim, coached by Keith Neiswanger and Sergio Dorrego. All right, so for swim, our girls varsity swim were the Freeway League champions. Our CIF finalists. First, we have Samantha Burgess, who in the 50 freestyle placed 18th. And in the 100 freestyle, placed 20th in CIF finals, as well as being on the 400 freestyle relay team. We also have Evelyn Granis, who was in the 500 freestyle. She placed 11th at CIF finals. And then in the 500 freestyle, Mia Carley, who placed 20th. And then our girls 400 freestyle relay team placed 9th overall, and that was Rain Parker, Eden Buell, Mia Carley, and Samantha Burgess. Our boys CIF finalists. In the 50 freestyle, Liam Weinrich placed 17th. In the 100 breaststroke, Liam also placed 14th, and he was also in the 200 and 400 relay team. And our 200 freestyle relay team that placed 16th, we have Daniel Kim, Preston Shin, Miles Kim. Liam is already up there. And then in our 400 freestyle relay team, Daniel Kim, David Kim, Preston Shin, and Liam. These are our CIF finalists for our aquatics program and our swim team.
All right, congratulations, Sunny Hills. Thank you. Good job, guys. Good job.
Happy meeting. Happy meeting.
All right, next we have Troy High School. I believe it's Mr. Anderson, Mr. Roger Anderson.
How are you? Good, good. We have our swim with Coach Dreesen, Summer Dreesen. Guys, come on up. Our state qualifiers, our first up is Kevin Hume. He's a CIF finalist in the 200 freestyle, 500 freestyle, 200 free relay, 400 free relay, state qualifier in the 500 freestyle, 200 free relay, 400 relay, school and league records as part of the 200 free relay and 400 relay, and the MVP of the boys varsity swim team. Very nice year. What a surprise. Next up, we have Theo Sun, CIF finalist in the 200 freestyle, 400 freestyle, state qualifier in the 200 free relay and 400 relay, school and league record as part of the 200 free relay and 400 relay. He also holds the school record as part of the 200 medley relay team, and he's the most outstanding swimmer on the varsity swim team. Next up, we have Tony Zhang, CIF finalist in the 50 freestyle, 200 free relay, and 400 free relay. School and league records as part of the 200 free relay and the 400 free relay. State qualifier in the 200 free relay and 400 free relay. And he holds the school record for the 50 free and holds the school record as part of the 200 medley relay team. And he was the most versatile for the boys swim team. Congrats. Next up, we have Luke Leon Guerrero, CIF finalist in the 500 freestyle, the 400 relay, state qualifier for the 500 free relay and the 400 free relay. School and league records as part of the 400 free relay team, and he was the Coaches Award winner for the swim team. And this is our state qualifying group. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Weinrich, and congratulations to all of our spring athletes. We do have one more group. We're going to see if anybody is here. Dr. Minster, we have the Science Olympiad, and I know your head coach is on his way to a conference.
No, none of my Science Olympiad are here. This often is when we celebrate them at this time of year. So many of them are on either their internships or their other places, and one of our coaches is off to Nevada for our PLC conference. So let me just say this real quickly about them. Fantastic team. They won California, the state, like literally for the 30th time in a row. I'll just say this, 4th place nationally out of 60 teams, low score wins. The very top low score was a 208. Second place was a 228. Third place was a 233, and we scored a 279. That's not a lot of gap. To put it in perspective, the 60th place team scored a 1,222. So we're in good shape. We have 2 seniors. Everybody else is lower classmen, and we'll be back there again next year. So thank you, guys.
For Science Olympiad, Troy. Thank you, Dr. Minster. That concludes our commendations and recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Zener, and all the athletic directors, coaches, and players that were recognized, and of course our Olympiad team as well. Very, very nice. Board members, is there any timely information you'd like to share at this point? Okay. Dr. McLaughlin? Oh, I'm sorry, Marilyn, I apologize.
I don't know how this fits in, but I know some people are going to be leaving. I just wanted to thank these leaders here for their wonderful year. And YouTube. So I saw them all, except not all the names at the end, but they all had their own character and all had what was beautiful about them and represented your school so beautifully. So thank you for always letting the board be part of your celebration. So.
Thank you for those wonderful sentiments. That was smart of you to realize that they're going to literally fly out of here. Well, not literally fly out of here, but literally go to fly out of here. Thank you, everyone. Any other comments? Okay, Dr. McLaughlin.
Yeah, thank you, President Foley, members of the board, and echo Trustee Bushi. Yeah, just a big thank you for all the work that goes into not just graduation from the principal level, but everybody. It takes a whole staff. It takes a maintenance team to set up. It takes our certificated staff to make sure we're calling the right names, our classified staff to help support all those efforts. It really is a team effort. And to your point, they all had that unique special flair and really a special year. And we talk about it all year that these were our COVID kids. These were our 9th graders that in March of 2020, the world shut down. And so to be able to celebrate like we did was really, really special. From the mosh pit after Troy High School to the alma maters being sung, you all had really just unique moments, which really emulated, I do believe, our theme this year of Together We Are FJUHSD, and really reactivating and engaging our students and our community. So I want to thank our principals. As is mentioned, our principals have a 10:30 flight tonight, and that's why they're going to be leaving here in about 5 minutes. We have about 60 plus teachers, including our teachers on special assignment. We have our principals, our APIOs, as well as district administrative from our Ed Services team, Dr. Zener, because over the summer, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop in Fullerton Joint. The summer and the kids kind of might take a break, but summer school is in full force. There's going to be athletic camps that are going to be going. There's science camps that are happening. There's learning that's going on with our instructional staff, which is in our conference. There's cleaning and maintenance that goes on over the summer to get us prepared and ready to go. We are doing a budget and closing out or starting a budget, closing the year, starting a year. So we're highly active in this district, and I just want to celebrate everybody and take a moment and just say thank you for all that effort and work, and thanks for the board for their leadership in providing us guidance along the way. We are excited to start next year. Tons of planning has already ensued, and so we're anxious to come back on those August 10th, 11th days and welcome our staff back. And then finally, just to again publicly welcome Deanna. Really excited to have you on board as a partner and a teammate. Really appreciate this district for allowing the crossover time with Mrs. Harder. This is such a unique position and so specialized and technical. Thankfully, Mrs. Harder has been keeping it in good stead, and so she's got it lined up for for a transfer of it, and she's going to hang in a little bit extra days in July to help us out too, but she'll officially retire at the end of July. So we'll celebrate her more as we go into the next days. But Deanna, welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I just want to verify, are we going to recess now? Yeah. We're going to take a short recess so that our principals can get on the road, and we'll be reconvening in 5-ish minutes. Very short recess. Yeah, 5 to 10. Yeah, it's usually me. We are back. Hello, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it, and I'm glad you were able to see all those wonderful accomplishments by our students and coaches. It's just really terrific. And we will now be hearing from our employee associations. So first, I'd like to invite FSTO President Angie Senkak to the podium.
Good evening, President Foley, trustees, and Dr. McLaughlin. It's hard to believe that the 2022-23 school year has moved us into the summer session already. It seems like just yesterday we were beginning the school year, and we will soon turn the page to the next chapter. Our FSTO members are quite busy this summer. Some are teaching, some are coaching, many are attending the PLC conference in Vegas this week, and others are already preparing for the 2023-24 school year. Our Special Education Committee came together this past spring as a new addition to FSTO. While we have only met a handful of times, 3 of our members have been invited to present at the CTA Special Education Conference in Garden Grove this coming October. Patty Stack, our committee chairperson, and the adapted PE teacher, Sophie Long-Letary, adult transition teacher, and Julie Vinson, district RN, will be imparting their knowledge of their own specialties on our CTA colleagues. We are so excited for them and proud that they are representing FSTO. I am currently working on our new educator mentor program with Christy Kenny Kitchen, English teacher at Buena Park High School. We are awaiting approval from the National Education Association for a grant that will allow us to support our probationary members, provide them resources for their classrooms, and offer them a forum to collaborate with veteran educators. Thank you to Dr. Kaufman and to Dr. Atkinson for your willingness to work together with us on this project and provide us with some guidance for the program. I look forward to sharing the program's progress with you all in future board meetings. We are also currently awaiting word from CTA regarding grants that 5 of our members have applied for, and we'll be working on those together next year. Amanda Gieser and I have been very busy preparing for the next school year. Our new educator luncheon is scheduled for August 9th at 12:30 at the No-Cut offices. We look forward to hosting this fun event and hope you are all able to join us. Invitations will be sent in July, so please be on the lookout for those. Earlier today, we celebrated and said goodbye to our FSTO retirees. Thank you all for your numerous years of service, your dedication to our FJUHSD students, and your support within FSTO. We wish you all the best. FSTO also wishes a very happy birthday to Dr. Jang and a belated happy birthday to Dr. Calhoun. And last but certainly never least, FSTO wants to welcome Deanna Oseguera to the position of Executive Assistant to the Superintendent. I am looking forward to working with you, and I get to continue working with you, which is a great joy to me. I'll miss you at Buena Park when I visit there, but I get to see you here. And to Linda Harder, you will be missed so much. Thank you for taking care of me these past few years, first as Vice President and now as President. I'm so excited for you as you begin your next adventure, and I know that we will keep in touch. Amanda wanted to say a few words, I think.
I'm going to try. Just to echo what Dr. McLaughlin said earlier today, you've been the heart of this district. From the moment I got hired in 2004, you took care of me, you took care of all of us. And we're really excited for you, and I'm excited for your adventures. Thank you for reminding all of us that it's the people who matter. We love you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our CSEA president to the podium, Joni Best.
Good evening, Dr. McLaughlin, President Foley, members of the board. Well, the J's squared, as we refer to ourselves, are taking turns traveling. Last month, my counterpart and CSCA first Vice President, Joanne, gave the update for CSCA, as I was on the East Coast for my son's wedding. Joanne is currently cruising the Mediterranean, So then it's my turn to give a quick update. So just a few things tonight. Last week, CSEA ratified the MOU for the new certified athletic trainer position. That will be added to each one of our sites with a vote of 41 yes and 15 no. So we're really excited to add these positions to our bargaining unit. CSEA is in the process of signing the MOU to reclassify the accountant position in business services to fiscal analyst. We continue to participate in meetings with the district administration regarding additional CSEA positions. The meetings have been respectful, and the district administration has been considerate and understanding to all of our questions and demands or requests for information. They have agreed to provide additional information as requested, so we truly appreciate the support in us being accountable to our CSEA members. On the 19th of May, Joanne and I attended the May Revise, and we were pleased with the information that was provided regarding the COLA, and we look forward to the communication from the district. May 21st through the 22nd was Classified School Employee Week. Our Chapter 82 E-Board decided to acknowledge our members for all their hard work and gave them each a gift card. As always, CSEA's vision is to continue to develop our strong, positive relationships with the district, and we look forward to continuing these relationships with our monthly meetings with Dr. McLaughlin and Dr. Atkinson. Thank you again for your time, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Joni. Okay, I don't think we have a report from either of our Parent-Teacher Association partners, so we're going to be moving on to the agenda to public comments. And at this time, it's public comments for items that are not on the agenda. And individuals who filled out a speaker request form will be invited to the podium when their name is read. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and 30 minutes per topic. So I have a blue card from Nicholas Cardenas.
Good evening. Board Bylaw 9325 allows the board to take this into closed session, so I want to afford you that opportunity before I start reading what's in here.
Leave it at the table, give it to me directly. What would you prefer?
Oh, well, we can go into closed session. The board bylaw allows that, or I can read it here. It's entirely up to you.
Well, we wouldn't be returning to closed session at this point,
Okay,
according to
fair
our
enough.
agenda.
So I just have a couple of questions. I'm the former accountant, as I think most of you know. Congrats on reclassifying that position. I just have a few questions specific to the Ed Foundation. That was something that I had to handle the taxes for, use tax and stuff. And during my time at the district, I became aware that President Atkinson hadn't filed the taxes for the Ed Foundation in 3 or 4 years. Now, this foundation is critical to the district because it's the foundation that issued certificates of participation to build La Vista La Sierra. So there is certain things that we would need to do specific to this foundation, and one of them is in our financial statements to list them as a component unit. Prior to Assistant Superintendent Hernandez coming on board, we always listed it as a component unit. His first year, it was removed from the financials. So if you go back and you look at 2 years ago, it's not there anymore. Then magically, this past year, it's reappeared. So I just wanted to put that out there and say what's going on with that. Additionally, one of the things that I had to do was review the bank account for the Ed Foundation. And boy, was I surprised to see all kinds of checks written to all kinds of people, specifically Mr. Atkinson here, $2,000, $399.63. Jessica Fernandez, an ag teacher, $3,647.11. $1,299.27. Troy Coffin, I don't know who that is, $2,000. TNT Fireworks, $5,045.08. So I just want to put that out there. Can anyone speak to what those expenses were for? Because, as I understand it, the articles of incorporation for the foundation specifically state that the funds are not to be used for the benefit of any individual person. So I've sent the emails, you guys all got them. Help me understand what's going on. And help me understand relative to me losing my job for reporting this to Mr. Hernandez. And I'll show you what Mr. Hernandez did when I brought this to him in his office when I still worked here. He did this. So just want to put that out there. Looks like I got about 9 seconds left. Thank you for your time. The board, ultimately, you are responsible for this Ed Foundation. I would encourage you to get it buttoned up.
Thank you for your comments. Non-agenda items may not be acted on during the meeting nor discussed by the board. If you would like further information, please contact us through the district website or contact staff members who will be happy to talk with you with follow-up information. All right, next we have no other blue cards for non-agenda items. So next we have an action item. This is revised board policy 5353, eligibility requirements for participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And so I'll be turning over to Executive Director of Administrative Services, Dr. Carl Zehner, to present the item.
Thank you, President Foley, members of the board, and Dr. McLaughlin. As you may recall, in November 2022, district administrators began working with our district athletic directors to facilitate a discussion and receive input regarding revising Board Policy 5353 and Administrative Regulation 5353, eligibility requirements for participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. The proposed outcome was to update and revise the Board Policy and Administrative Regulation so the new eligibility requirements better align with CIF requirements, which in turn makes our district more competitive with surrounding districts. The new eligibility modifications allow the athletic directors and assistant principals of student activities to simplify the eligibility process and create a document that is much more user-friendly. Revised Board Policy 5353 was presented for first reading information at the May 9th, 2023 board meeting and is now presented for second reading action. It is recommended that the revised board policy be adopted.
Thank you, Dr. Zehner. Is there a motion?
I move approval of revised Board Policy 5353.
Thank you. And a second. Thank you. And discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it. Next, we have new textbook list revisions, and this is for the 23-24 school year, addendum number 2, and it's being presented for first reading by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Sylvia Kaufman. She'll be presenting the information.
Thank you, President Foley, members of the board. This evening for first reading and information, the textbooks on the attached list are proposed for addition to the basic textbook list effective for the 23-24 school year. In accordance with District Administrative Regulation 6711.1, the textbooks have been reviewed by teachers and submitted to department leaders for evaluation. The members of the appropriate curriculum committees have completed the evaluation forms indicating that the books have been properly reviewed. The proposed additions have also been approved by Administrative Council and the Superintendent. Information on the proposed basic textbooks are presently available in Education and Assessment Services Division for review by any interested persons. The textbooks will be recommended for adoption at the June 13, 2023 board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, this is a first reading, so there's no action taken, but do board members have any questions, input they'd like to provide? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Dr. Kaufman, I believe you are up again.
All right, then. Good evening, President Foley, members of the board, and Dr. McLaughlin. This evening, Education and Assessment Services will present for public hearing the Local Control Accountability Plan for the 23-24 school year. The plan was sent to board members a couple of weeks ago for your review, and this evening we will present a summary of the LCAP, which includes several sets of documents, some required and some related. We will first provide a quick reminder of the background and history of the LCAP, how we involved our educational partners in developing the LCAP, and we will review the overall organization of the document and the development schedule.
We will also remind you of the goals and metrics and highlight a few of the actions, all of which we presented in more detail at the March board meeting just a few months ago. Then, we will take you through the required components of the LCAP and those that are related components. Finally, we will show you where we are now in the process and what lies ahead. Let's begin with a reminder of where we've been in the LCAP process. The process began all the way back in October with our first District Advisory Committee meeting. Over the course of the next several months, we developed the annual survey, looked at lots of student outcome data, held focus groups at each school, and combined what we learned into the draft that is being presented here tonight. The last time we presented to the Board of Trustees was in March, when we gave you an update on the LCAP development. The next number of slides will look familiar to you because they are a review of what was presented in March. We present them here again tonight for those who may not have attended the March board meeting. The local control funding formula was implemented for the first time in the 2013-14 school year. It replaced the previous funding revenue limit formula that had been in place for nearly 40 years. LCFF is based primarily on average daily attendance, also known as ADA. The new funding formula was designed to consolidate what had been over 40 categorical funding sources. The governor wanted there to be more local control around the usage of state funds. The new LCFF included additional funding to support our unduplicated student populations, such as English learners, foster youth, students qualifying for low income. The additional funding can come to districts as supplemental funds. The additional funding can also come to districts as concentration funds when the unduplicated student population is over 55% for the district. As of this year, our district has received base level C LCFF funds and now both supplemental and concentration grant funds. Prior to this year, we did not receive concentration funding because our percentage here in Fullerton Joint Union High School District for unduplicated student population did not exceed 55%. Now it does. It's nearly at 61%. Though LCFF dollars are mostly locally determined, districts are still held to a certain level of accountability by the state. This is where the LCAP comes into the picture. Each LCAP must fulfill certain requirements, and the plans are reviewed by each district's county office of education. Ours is OCDE, Orange County Department of Ed, to ensure that those requirements are included. Each LCAP is a 3-year plan that must be updated annually. Each LCAP is required to address 8 priorities that must have been established by the state. Each LCAP must seek input from its educational partners and stakeholders. Each LCAP must identify established goals and the actions, services, and expenditures that will help to achieve these goals. Our district has implemented 9 LCAPs, and the one we are currently presenting for next year will be our 10th, 1 decade long here. And the process has always been months of work with our educational partners to ensure that it's broad in scope, inclusive of all students, and thorough. The process begins in the fall by reviewing student outcome data with the previous year with the District Advisory Committee, known as DAC, the District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC, and other educational partners. We administer surveys and conduct focus groups. This process results in several drafts of the LCAP that are reviewed and revised during the spring. The transparency of this process results in an understanding of our shared community values coupled with a clear sense of student needs, which in turn results in the LCAP to improve the overall educational program that focuses on high-needs students but benefits all students. Over the past 9 years, the district has added numerous key actions and services that did not exist before the LCAP. Before the LCAP, we didn't have some of these areas, EL Family Community Liaisons, EL Family Liaisons at each site, instructional aides and ELD classrooms, additional guidance techs at sites, teachers on special assignments known as TOSAs, and mental health specialists. And though I'm skipping a few, the list could go on and on and on. The LCAP process helped us identify the needs and implement a plan to meet the needs. The question that may have come up at this point is, so how is progress measured? There's two ways. There's state indicators and there's local indicators. State indicators, which are coupled under three overarching categories. We could classify these into three: student outcomes, conditions of learning, and engagement. The three categories have generally been incorporated into three goals of our current LCAP. These indicators appear in the LCAP under Measuring and Reporting Results section of each goal, where we show the metric. A set baseline data, first year of a 3-year plan, outcome data for each of the 3 years of the plan, and the desired outcomes for the 2023-24 year 3 of the plan. There are also local indicators we use to measure progress, most of which are not determined by the district. Most of these indicators are set by the state, but the determination of whether or not they have been met is locally established. As I stated a moment ago, these local indicators are mostly determined by the state, and our performance findings are published in the California State Dashboard under 3 headings: academic performance, academic engagement, and conditions and climate. And of course, the individual metrics are listed in the LCAP. As you can see in this example, where we measure the percent of teachers who are appropriately credentialed for the courses they teach. And now I will turn it over to our Director of Educational Services, Mr. Steve Zamora, to take you through how we involved our educational partners in the development of the 23-24 LCAP.
Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. The district implements an extensive and thorough process to gain feedback from educational partners. And there's a section in the LCAP that details all the things the district employs to try to get a thorough understanding of where we are and where we need to improve. Each year we administer the annual LCAP survey, and it gives us a lot of information from 3 key educational partner groups. That's parents, students, and staff. The surveys were conducted in January. You can see the results here. We also conducted focus groups for each school that included small groups of parents, students, and staff. Usually that's between about 5 and 8 people in each of those groups for a total of about 126 participants. The focus groups actually allow the district to delve deeper into some of the LCAP survey responses to get a better understanding of our educational partners' perceptions. There were 4 DLAC meetings, or I should say DAC meetings, forgive me, where we presented partners with student outcome data and reviewed LCAP survey data. There were 81 total participants representing each of the district schools, and you can see the numbers of each of the groups of participants that are listed up there. We also met with the District English Learner Advisory Committee, that's DLAC, to present data, review survey results, suggest actions and services, and draw conclusions. We also submitted a draft of the LCAP to the Orange County Department of Education, where we received feedback, and very few changes have been recommended. Finally, we placed the draft of the LCAP on the district website on May the 2nd so that community members can review, and if desired, they can provide comment as well. There were several identified needs that came up out of the partner input process that have in the past and will again this year make their way into the 23-24 LCAP. From our parents and students, the top identified needs that have been addressed in the actions of the LCAP include continuing tutoring before, during, and after school, as well as the tutor.com program, health and safety, which was a real key issue in this year's survey, and under this area, parents and students asked for more mental health services and social emotional coping skills. They also asked for additional guidance services to support students in career exploration, scholarships, internships, and more. Teachers and classified staff also identified needs that have made their way into the actions of the LCAP this year. The top 3 were equipment supplies, specifically related to educational technology and the use thereof, continued training in that technology, including possible certifications for our teachers and opportunities there, and then increased professional learning opportunities to collaborate with their colleagues, which they all enjoy very much. DAC and DLAC feedback included a desire to focus on math and encouraging students to do their best on the state tests. They also indicated their appreciation for the support provided by staff to help the identification and reclassification of eligible English learners. They also encouraged school leadership to continue emphasizing proper placement of students based on their needs and requests. And that's just a quick rundown of the feedback we received that influenced the writing of the LCAP. The LCAP has required and related components. The budget overview for parents and the LCAP, what I call kind of the LCAP proper with its various sections, are required. There are 3 goals in the LCAP, and there are accompanying metrics we use to measure the progress. But again, just as we did in more detail last March, we'll summarize the goals and metrics and give you just a few of the highlights of some of the actions that you read about in the LCAP that came before you this week. So goal 1 of LCAP is making sure that all district students are college and career ready. And you'll remember that the metrics that we use to progress in this goal, they haven't changed since March. So we monitor state test results, the A to G completion rates, and several other measures that give us an indication of the student readiness for college and careers. And just some highlights, some actions that are in it. This year we began pursuing an increase in dual enrollment opportunities for our students. Currently, students can receive college credit for subjects listed at Cypress, Fullerton, and Cerritos College. And we're working to increase student opportunities next year at Buena Park School through the academy courses at Fullerton College, and also to allow students from Buena Park, La Habra, and Sonora to join their fellow students at Fullerton High School who have an MOU with Cypress College for their culinary program there. We have district CTE pathways where students learn skills and knowledge that prepare them for the world of work and 2-year colleges, 26 pathways in all. We also have 19 pathways with our partners through ROP, bringing the total number of CTE pathways in district to 45. And just as a side note, one of our district advisory committee members included Superintendent of North Orange County ROP, Dr. Dana Lynch, this year. And these are areas of focus that we've moved forward on in CTE with our various partners that include our surrounding community colleges and ROP, and also includes Orange County Department of Education's OC Pathways through the K-16 Pathways Grant. We're expanding dual enrollment in its various forms, industry-recognized certifications, expanding work-based learning opportunities through our partnership with OC Pathways, and we're also developing career pathway internships with our partners through ROP. And those are just a few of the areas we're addressing under Goal 1 of the LCAP. Goal 2 is about all students receiving a high-quality education based on state standards. Metrics associated with this goal include the percentage of appropriately credentialed teachers, feedback we receive from the Set for Success Professional Learning Series, and enrollment of students in advanced and elective courses. Partly to address Goal 2, we instituted the Set for Success Professional Learning Series that's been met with an awful lot of positive feedback from our teaching staff, thanks to the work of our hardworking teachers on special assignment, TOSAs. Our teachers have been working throughout the year to align and build upon the best practices wherever each subject area found itself in the cycle of continued improvement. The Set for Success Learning Series had 3 phases, and nearly every teacher in the district attended at least 2 sessions, collaborating with their colleagues to improve instruction. And as the year progressed, more subject areas were added to the series so that teachers from nearly every single listed subject area was participating at least twice in collective collaborative days. And that takes us to Goal 3. Goal 3 is about engaging families and creating a climate of support and success at each district school. I'll highlight some of the metrics they use to measure progress here in Goal 3 as well. We look at parent participation through several means to gauge their level of involvement. We also look at attendance, suspensions, graduation rate, dropout rates to gauge school climate as well. To meet Goal 3, a large part of what we've been focusing on this year has been on wellness, which is a main focus for the coming year as well, based on feedback we've received from our educational partners. You can see that the district is providing literally a plethora of wellness approaches through the system, services, and resources the wellness team has put together. Our mental health specialists are the core of a wellness team, but they're part of a bigger community that includes counselors, school psychologists, teachers, campus supervisors, custodians, bus drivers, SROs, and the like. Our goal is to equip every employee with the knowledge and skills to support their own, their colleagues, and all of our students' mental wellness. Here's just a quick look at the data we are using to determine the effectiveness of our wellness program. Wellness spaces have been created at each school now, wellness groups, help students to develop social skills, practice de-escalation skills, and address substance abuse where it's necessary. We've had 342 warm handoffs to the Care Solace program outside agency, where 174 of the families, which is 50% of our families, were linked to community mental health support. The national average of successful linkage is only 4%. So it's a really, really good set of data. As the slide says, wellness spaces offer students a safe place to build self-awareness, to learn and to use tools of de-escalation so that they can return to class ready to learn. So we reviewed the background, the partner input, and an overview of the LCAP, and we reviewed the goals and metrics of the 23-24 LCAP, and we also give you a few highlights of the actions within it. I want to turn our attention to the LCAP components in a little bit more detail. As I said before, there are 4 components in the LCAP. The first is called the budget overview for parents. It's designed to provide parents and community members with a simple and easy understanding graphical representation of the budget and how it relates to the LCAP. And it's just a summary. I know, no doubt that Mr. Hernandez and his business services team will be providing with more detailed information in just a few minutes. The budget overview for parents, however, is supposed to summarize the overall revenue and projected expenditures that are in the budget. It also gives the reader a glance at the funding sources and the budgeted expenditures that are in the LCAP itself. There's another way of looking at this that might be easier, and this is something that's part of the LCAP as well. There's two pie charts. The one on the left gives readers an overall look at the revenues of the district, and the one on the right details the LCFF funds and distinguishes between the baseline LCFF funds and those that are supplemental and concentration grant funds. And as you can see, the total district revenue is going to be projected at a little over $236 million. Of those, LCFF funds make up $184 million, which actually includes the $24 million of supplemental and concentration grant funds. And then federal, state, and local funds make up about $52 million. A simple bar graph provides community members with budgeted expenditures and those expenditures that are in the LCAP, because not all expenditures are listed in the LCAP. And that's the budget overview for parents section of the LCAP. That takes us kind of to the LCAP, what I call the LCAP proper, with its 7 sections. But for the next few minutes, we want to take you through the actions, services, and expenditures that are in the 23-24 LCAP draft. And this is where you might want to strap on, because it's a little bit of a lengthy section. So hang in there with me. In the next portion of the presentation, you're going to see the goal that is addressed in the first case, and you can see that's highlighted there. Then you'll see the action that is addressing that goal, and then the service or services in some cases that will be listed, and then the budgeted cost, the funding sources, and an explanation of whether the cost is continuing unchanged, increased, decreased, or is new. Something to remember is in the little legend you see there. Blue is new, green is increased, purple is decreased, and orange means that a service is paid out of funding that's other than LCFF, supplemental, or concentration funds. So we begin with goal 1. You've already seen part of it. Action 1 deals with staffing and the 4 services listed under that action. I'm not going to read every entry here, as board members have already had a chance to review the plan, but it is noteworthy to point out here 3 items that are continuing, but at an increased amount. My salary, Director of Educational Services, the data technician for special projects is now increased from 50% to 60%, and the data systems management technician position is new to Ed Services. Action 2 provides internet connection hotspots for students needing internet access at home. Goal 1, Action 3 outlines the services designed to provide guidance, AP and IB test sponsorships, and intervention software programs for math and literacy. Action 4 continues the provision of a 2-hour block for ELD 1 for our students. Action 5 supports the AVID program, now at 5 schools in the district. Action 6 provides funds for tutoring programs both within and outside the school day, and that cost has actually gone down a little bit from last year. Action 7 continues provisions of instructional aids in the general education support classrooms. Action 8 continues supporting the Opportunity Program at La Vista High School. Action 9 continues funding for subject-specific teachers on special assignment, our TOSAs. And that takes us to goal 2. It has 8 actions. Action 1 provides for the adoption of new instructional materials. This next year is going to be world languages, or we're going to finish world languages because we have Spanish to go, and also we'll be getting science, and also routine restricted maintenance. Action 2 covers basic staffing. Action 3 continues our support of summer school funding. Action 4 continues our professional learning commitment to our staff through the Set for Success professional learning series, as well as it continues what was started this year in providing meal kits for non-student days. And this was a success, but you'll notice that the costs went down because the costs were less than what we had expected, so that budget has gone down. Action 5 continues provisions of library services. Action 6 continues the 186-day work year. The budget for this is increased to cover 5 rather than the 4 non-student staff days. Action 7 continues maintenance of the 28.5 to 1 student-to-teacher ratio, class size reduction. Action 8 continues covering the cost of 1-to-1 Chromebooks, and that's up a little bit. It was $2.4 million, I think, the previous year. It's $2.5 million we're expecting for this next year. Goal 3 is about engaging parents and creating a climate of support and success for our students. Action 1 here provides staffing for oversight and support to students by providing several things. A new position that began this year, the Educational Services Coordinator. Second, program specialist coordinators will be hired this next year to provide administrative support to our special education teams in each school, and those positions are new, and the funding will come from special education. Third, continued funding for administration staff whose role focuses most of their time on unduplicated student populations. Fourth, continued funding for each school to create restorative teams for students returning to school after extended absences for various reasons. And fifth, continuing to fund the Director of Student Support Services position. Action 2 under Goal 3 provides services to support student success and contributes to a climate of support through social emotional training, parent surveys, a senior survey, outside agencies that provide tiered support for students experiencing social emotional challenges, and translation services. Action 3 provides staff to connect families and students to their school community through the continued work of the district community liaison and through the efforts of our EL family liaisons at each of the schools. And these costs are relatively the same, but we have decreased costs under LCFF, I call S&C, and increased the cost of Title III because we have additional funds under Title III, and they have a shelf life of just 27 months. We need to spend those funds from there first. It takes us to Action 4. And this is the Comprehensive Health and Safety Program. It was really, as I've said before, a key theme in the LCAP survey responses and through our DAC, DLAC, and focus group sessions. Under this action are staffing, plenty of staffing there, outside service agencies for training purposes, equipment and supplies, and facilities enhancements, all designed to provide a healthy and safe learning environment for our students and staff. Action 5 continues support to career technical education through various funding sources. New to the district is the CTE guidance technician that was implemented this year after the 22-23 LCAP had already been in effect. This came out of our partnership with Orange County Department of Education in the K-16 Consortium grant, and it pays for this position, and we're really glad to welcome Stephen Nelson to the team, and he's hit the ground running. He's doing a really great job. Action 6 continues providing funds to each district school to implement creative ways to connect our students to the school through extracurricular activities. And Action 7 is new to LCFF's supplemental and concentration funding, but continues to provide transportation services for field trips and athletic events. And all I want to say is, whew, that was the heavy part. And that covers the action services and expenditures in the 23-24 LCAP. As stated earlier, though, there's required and related components to the LCAP. And we've summarized the required components. There are two related components, and the local indicators and federal addendum are the two. But to make it a little bit clearer for board members and others, we thought community members might appreciate a more graphic representation and understanding of the components of the LCAP. So the LCAP, like I keep saying, kind of proper, if you will, has the LCAP plan with all its sections and the budget overview for parents. These are required to be presented at one board meeting, and then that's tonight, and then adopted in a subsequent board meeting. That's going to be June 13th. Related components are expected to be board approved at the same time as the LCAP, but they are not technically part of the LCAP. First of those is the local indicators. The local indicators are actually part of the California School Dashboard. And as you can see, there's a snapshot of the dashboard here that has those indicators on it. Annually, school districts are required to conduct a local review to determine district progress in 5 of the 8 state priority areas that are given to us. And as board members read already on the May 26 weekly board letter, based on district findings, the district has met the standards found within each one of these 5 priority areas. In addition to the local indicators, a second related component to the LCAP is the federal addendum. It too is to be updated annually and presented for board approval. This year, the district was encouraged by our federal program monitoring reviewer to have the addendum approved at the same time as the LCAP. So it's presented this evening as a summary of the addendum that the board members received this last week, and it will be presented at the June 13th board meeting for approval. The federal addendum is a companion document to the LCAP that fulfills the federal requirements associated with federal entitlement programs. That's Title I, II, III, and IV. It used to be called the Local Education Agency Plan, for those of you who've been around a long time like me. That used to be a 90-plus page additional plan that we had to do in addition to the LCAP, in addition to other plans, and it went on ad nauseum. That plan was replaced with the federal addendum, which is much shorter and kind of accompanies and supports what the LCAP doesn't talk about. There are several sections in the draft where there's no narrative. Those sections are not required because they're satisfied in the LCAP, but as I indicated and is indicated in the slide, there's 4 sections of the addendum, one for each of the entitlement programs. Section 1 addresses Title I funds, which are designed to supplement the core educational program and close the achievement gap for certain student groups. There are 6 Title I schools in the district. The exceptions are Sunny Hills High School and Troy, but they also receive homeless funds, which is a requirement for any district that receives Title I funds. The supports can include things you see there: support classes, academic tutoring, academic counseling, mental health support. This section also requires the district to describe the distribution of qualified and experienced teachers across the district, our parent and family engagement policies, and our homeless policy. Under the section Title II, board members will remember reading a lengthy procession of all the types of professional development that the district provides to staff members, including the PLC early and late start days and the Set for Success professional learning series, among other things. This section also includes an area in the template where the district must describe how it describes the allocation of federal funds to schools. In this case, the annual consolidated application automates that process for us, so we lucked out there. There's also a portion of this section that outlines the way educational partners are included in developing and evaluating the effectiveness of professional development. Title III dollars are designated specifically for support to English learners and their families. This section outlines the district's English learner program of study, how the program is monitored for effectiveness, and the district's reclassification process. Each of these entitlement programs includes funding for professional development that's related to the funding goals. And then finally, Title IV dollars are used to design to support schools in 3 areas: providing a well-rounded education, health and student wellness, and educational technology. The district uses these funds for professional development that's specific to the dictates of these funds, mental health services that are not covered by other funding sources, and educational technology, again, that's not covered under other funding sources. There's also an area in this particular portion of the addendum where the district outlines its process to determine the needs in each area of the addendum. Almost done. But here's where we've been since March and the road ahead in this process. The last time we got together in March, where we provided you a mid-year update. Since then, the LCAP process has included initial drafts of the plan that have been reviewed by DAC, DLAC, Cabinet, Orange County Department of Education. We also collaborated closely with business services to align the budget with the LCAP goals, actions, and services, and my hat's off to Mr. Hernandez and his team. We did the best job I think we've ever done in aligning the LCAP and the budget together, so hats off to them. And just as a quick reminder, here is just a few of the actions and services that are again in the LCAP. Remember, blue is new, green is increased funding, purple's decreased, and orange indicates other funding sources other than LCFF, and these are just some of them. There are a number of new services, but there are still even more actions and services that will be continued. So here's where we are tonight. At the conclusion of this presentation, a public hearing is required to be held. Next Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, the required components of the LCAP will be presented for board approval, and the related components of the LCAP will be included as part of consent items. I think it's really important, as a final note, to remember why we developed these plans and why we work so hard. It's so that we can fulfill our vision of empowering future-ready students to be globally competitive and responsible citizens. And we're seeing some real positive outcomes for our students. The official results are not yet out, but preliminary outcomes on state testing are very positive, and I can hardly wait to share those with you in the near future. And unless there are questions or comments, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you to Dr. Kaufman and to Mr. Zamora. I'm going to be open to public hearing in a moment, but first, we start with our board members, right? Okay. Marilyn.
Would you repeat that, please?
A truncated version.
I have just a few very simple questions, actually. One of them in the section early on when you're talking about engagement, was that engagement of the parents and the public in the process? But I didn't hear you say including student engagement, which I know is a big focus that we're having with the district currently. Or did I miss it?
We said engagement, and engagement in those particular cases includes a number of stakeholders, but students are definitely included in that, as well as parents, staff members. Each of our bargaining units is involved in that as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Second, and again, this small question, the wellness units at each of the campuses, do we have numbers on how those are those well used by the students, which would indicate it's good they're there?
I know we've been gathering data. It depends on the specific locations. Like you have Buena Park High School that has been going on for a couple of years now, so there is more data there. And most recently, we have a couple of school sites that just opened up over the past 2 months or so, but we will get that information to the board in an upcoming WIPO for you.
Yeah, no rush, but I'd just be interested to know whether they're serving the need again, I guess if it serves the need of 3 kids, it's well worth it, so thank you. In the budget section that you present to parents, are the parents, are they interested in the component of the LCFF that actually addresses the needs of those 4 categories of students? Is it obvious, or is that something you have to tease out? I always am curious about how do we know the funds are going to fit the needs of particular groups of students? He's looking at Ruben. Budget, oh, did I say, yeah.
His budget. We get to know that. It's a little bit more anecdotal, I would say. I don't have like stats on it, but when we work with our district advisory committee, and we work with our district English learner advisory committee, we have several meetings with them over the months as we're developing the LCAP. And I would say we have to kind of tease it out, to be honest. I think we have to tease it out because it's not something that people readily understand. And so it takes a little bit of time to be able to explain it. But that is a somewhat smaller group. I would love it if more people could understand it, but the interest level doesn't appear to necessarily always be there. But for those who come, and parents and the community members who come, we do our best to try to tease that out for them so they understand that LCFF supplemental funds and concentration grant funds are specific to our unduplicated students. And then the other funds are for all students. But they're all the funds are for all students too.
That's true. Well, I know when the LCFF was first introduced, its intent was to be able to focus on, of course, all students, but particularly students that had the need for specific additional services. So, okay, 2 more quick questions. You said AVID which school does not have AVID?
La Habra.
Oh, La Habra, okay. And then my last question, was the federal addendum always included as part of this? I didn't think I remember.
In previous years, it was not. In fact, the first time we did it was before COVID. It's hard to say that COVID was that long ago, but it was actually before COVID. And when we first did the federal addendum, it was supposed to be a one-time shot, and it wasn't supposed to be updated for years. And then suddenly that changed,
and
we
it's
have
pretty
to update it every year.
comprehensive now, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Yeah, okay. That's all my questions. Thank you very much. Good report.
Other board members? Lauren?
I just have a quick question, because obviously one of the areas of focus is on our unduplicated populations, and sometimes those are really hard groups to engage in this process. So I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how sites and how the district is going out to try to recruit that significant subgroup, our parents of students with disabilities, are beyond the parents who are involved in DLAC. Obviously our foster youth, that's a different ball game, but you know, those significant subgroups in our unduplicated communities, how are we going out to specifically engage those parents and those caregivers and guardians?
Just for clarity, in the LCAP process or in general?
In the LCAP process, because we're looking at those groups.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's probably a number of ways to be able to answer that. That's a long answer. Let me hit just a couple of things. Well, the EL family liaisons are a good example of one of the things that we've done to be proactive in reaching students. So one of the jobs of the EL family liaisons, as well as some of the administrative staff that are paid through LCFF supplemental funds, is to make sure that we're monitoring those students. That's true not for just English learners, that's also true for, as you mentioned, foster youth and homeless youth, but it's also students who are struggling. You know, this also applies to students who are low-income students. So it is their job to go out and find those students and find out if they're doing well. So there's a monitoring process that is to be taking place at each of the district schools where they're checking in on the kids. So it's not just waiting for the kids' parents to come to us, it's actually reaching out to the kids. And I know that's one of the things that our EL family liaisons do. It's one of the things that our community liaison does. And we've set aside staff members, we've set aside funding and resources for staff members to do the reaching out. And so that's happening at each one of the district schools. And I know it's happening in other ways as well, but that's one example of the ways we're trying to reach out to English learners, foster, homeless. Same thing happens with students with disabilities. And a lot of our students with disabilities fall into one of those other categories as well.
If I may just add an additional piece. We've added an additional guidance tech at each of the school sites, and the guidance techs have been working exclusively with some of our community colleges to also provide parent workshops for many of the students that you have just indicated, the unduplicated count. So a very tighter partnership we've had with our community, in particular Fullerton College.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Foley. I just want to compliment Dr. Kaufman and Mr. Zamora on really a very complex communication piece here regarding the LCAP and then the extras that need to be part of this process. And it was amazing. It kind of struck me, this would be our 10th LCAP, and it feels like it just started. But the intention of the LCAP was, and the LCFF funding was really try to simplify planning, make it local, and simplify accountability plans. They've never accomplished that. With the LCAP, they've changed the template, I think, every year. They've offered extra addendums. Now they have provided additional one-time funding, which requires plans, which we brought forward. So really, to Dr. Kaufman and especially Mr. Zamora and his team, to be able to synthesize this process, but also to articulate it in a very comprehensive way. The budget planning tool is supposed to be simple for families to interact with. And so what we try to do through the process is explain that along the way and make ourselves accessible if anybody has questions based on what they give us. But kudos to this team for a job well done in shepherding through. Steve, I believe this, or Mr. Zamora, your 10th LCAP. Did you start the first one?
Very first one.
Very first one. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Part of the LCAP process is a public hearing, and so I will now open the meeting for a public hearing. If anyone has any comments, and I do have a blue card on this, please come to the podium and state your name prior to making comments. Public hearing is now open. Yes, Vivian, you are our blue card.
Here it was me. Hi, I'm Vivian Moreno. I'm here as a former DAC member for 9 years. So yeah, I've been part of the LCAP process for quite a while. And I just thought that it was kind of a cool thing to have the community and parent perspective, because you guys don't always get that. You get this really cool highlighted, which was not on the agenda. I love the highlights. That was great. A perspective of LCAP, and it's super important for the stakeholders. It's really important for the parents. I know it's hard for them to be there, and they're not all wonky like me and love to read up on legislation and ed code and things. And they try and they come up with some of the most fantastic ideas every year. And so you guys supporting the district to make it more simplified and easy with all the wacky template changes is really important, because our kids have these perspectives that they don't always have agency. They have agency, but they don't always know the ways of communicating their needs. And the mental health aspect actually started out from them. You know, it was a little niggle in the back of maybe some minds of administration and things, but the kids brought it up, the parents brought it up, and Mr. Zamora and Dr. Kaufman made it happen. And I really wanted to mention that not being on the DAC this year was really great, because I got to read it, all 84 pages, boom, in the last couple days, and it's been great. And so I just wanted to make a comment that I think that the Fullerton Joint Union School District does a magnificent job in the broad focus and setting the big goals and aligning the goals with the state goals. In the future, because the list of the services is so intense and getting more and more focused, it might help to have more focused data, so you guys can, when you bring it to the DAC, you can compare a little easier what works and what doesn't, because one of these days that money's not going to be there anymore. So I thought it was important for me to bring that up, and you guys have a great night.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. And seeing no one else approaching the podium and having no other blue cards, I now declare the public hearing closed. No action is needed this time. It'll be on our agenda a week from now. So I would like to call Assistant Superintendent Ruben Hernandez.
President Foley, if I may interrupt.
Of course.
With the board's permission, we have another group that would like to exit so that they can get
Oh,
into
right.
their conference. The Ed Services team. If you see them leaving, well done.
Yes.
Drive safe, and they're going to be
have a great
catching
time.
some planes and continuing the learning that's going on and meet their colleagues. So thank you.
For that reminder. Appreciate it. All right, I would like to call on Assistant Superintendent Ruben Hernandez for the presentation on the 23-24 fiscal year budget. And following the presentation, I will be opening a public hearing to receive any comments.
Thank you, President Foley, members of the board, Dr. McLaughlin, and community members.
Tonight's presentation will be a review of the adopted budget for the 23-24 school year. Tonight's expected outcomes is to have a clear understanding of our budget cycle, the purpose of the adopted budget, the state budget process, revisit the reserve fund, which is the 10% reserve cap, the state mandate, the current financial standing of the district, ending and beginning fund balances, and then as well as our next steps in the budgeting process. So tonight we're here to discuss the adopted budget and the LCAP process. You heard Dr. Kaufman and Mr. Zamora's presentation on the LCAP. Simultaneously, the budget is also in the same cycle where we will bring that back at the June 13th for recommendation. The next step for our business services team up in the fiscal services department is to begin the year-end closing process, which typically starts around early July and goes through late August. And then that will be closing the unaudited actuals, and then we won't be back in front of the board with the update to the 23-24 budget until December, which is the first interim. And so with that being said, the purpose of tonight's adopted budget is a requirement because of the AB 1200, which is a state requirement that requires all school districts to prepare an adopted budget report to start the school year or the upcoming school year. And that AB 1200 also requires those interim check-ins, as I was referring to in the budget cycle. But the adopted budget is a reflection or a projected budget for our anticipated revenues as well as expenditures for July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. And in the budget, we contain all agreements that we have between the district and our bargaining units, our labor partners, as well as all district funds, and as well as the 2-out year projected budgets of what our anticipated revenue and expenditures would look like. The requirement of today is for the board to certify this at the June 13th board meeting, but also so that we can take this to OCD for their approval, and then they submit that over to the California Department of Education. So that's the purpose of the adopted budget process. And then at this time right now, the actual legislative and governor are navigating the state adopted budget process. And typically around June 15th, the legislative budget comes together with both the Senate and the Assembly to present their combined budget approval process to the governor. And from that point on, the governor will negotiate that process with the legislative budget process. And they typically will have a state-approved budget by June 30th because they all want to get paid. With that being said, from that process, the governor's budget and the legislative budget, they came back identifying the COLA at 8.22% respectively. And so that's one box that was allowing us to move forward with some confidence that that's where we'll land. But they're still negotiating and talking through those processes. But I put a check mark there because they are both on the same page when it comes to that projected COLA. But the two key items for us that is still pending is the arts music discretionary block grant and the learning recovery block grant. You recall these from the 22-23 budget because these were items that were given to us by the governor for the current year school budget as a one-time allocation grant. So what happened was in 22-23, I put not applicable because the COLA has already been funded, but we were projected to get $8.4 million in the arts discretionary block grant, and then we were projected to receive $15.6 million in the learning recovery grant. Fast forward to the governor's proposed budget as well as the legislative proposed budgets from both the Senate and Assembly. Again, they both acknowledge that there's a 8.22 COLA, but where there's some discrepancies is the arts grant and the learning recovery grant. And those discrepancies between the two, the governor is showing a reduction down to $4.2 million and is also showing a legislative reduction down to 7.8. So in the governor's proposal, we see about $4.2 million in reduction in the arts discretionary grant. And then on the legislative side of their proposal, we're seeing about a $0.6 million reduction. So then fast forward to the learning recovery, the governor's proposal is $10.6 million, which is a $5 million reduction, and the legislative is a $14.6 million proposal, which is a $1 million reduction. And so as you can see here, the governor is using these one-time dollars to what he's proposing is to fund the 8.22 COLA, is to use these one-time dollars to do that. But what it's causing us to do is have to figure out what to do with $9.2 million of reduction of one-time dollars. We were putting in a lot of plans around using these dollars for specific programs. So now we need to take a step back and wait for what the governor finally approves to figure out what can we do with these dollars moving forward. Ideally, we'd like to see us land somewhere around, fund the COLA at 8.22, but let's land somewhere around what the legislative part of the Assembly and Senate are proposing, which is about a $1.6 million reduction between the two grants. So that's a wait and see. And so we'll keep an eye on what happens with that. But as you recall from last year, whenever we get to this point, this time of the year, we're always trying to figure out what's the next steps in our budget cycle. Is the 45-day revise, which is where we can bring back an adjustment to the adopted budget before August 15th. So that would be at our August board meeting. So depending on what happens with the final budget by the governor, we may come back to the board and make some adjustments to our budget. Now, if it's not that big of a deal to our impact to our daily operations that's happening, more than likely we'll make whatever minor adjustments during first interim. And so now just getting into the district's budget process, the 2023-24 budget is developed based on district assumptions as well as the governor's May revise, which is the latest proposed budget by the governor. And although we see other proposals coming from the Senate and Assembly, we typically lean on what the governor has done because that is a little bit more accurate for what we anticipate. But we also use what's happening at the Legislative Analyst's office just for some analysis and review. But primarily, we'll always go back to school services to see what they call it their dartboard, where they compile data and information. And we go there to also make sure that it's aligning with what the governor is saying. And so for the budget process for the district, we take a look at the ADA. And you heard Mr. Zamora reference the average daily attendance. For us, we look at it in the LCAP calculator. We look at it from 3 different options as a possibility. Is our current year average daily attendance greater than our prior year? If so, use the current year. If not, we look at the past year and we go there. But then there was a new legislation that was implemented this past year where we would look at a 3-year rolling average. And so which is greater of the 3? And when we plug in our data, the LCFF calculator indicates that the 3-year rolling average is what we typically would be using at this point. The next set of data we look at is projected COLA. Again, we go back to the governor's May revise. We confer within the school services dartboard. Are they aligning? And then we use those particular projected COLAs at that time. We also take a look at enrollment projections. Period 2, which is our P2 reporting for average daily attendance, is typically around April, where we gather this data. And then we also take a look at historical trend analysis, and we go back to the past 5 years of actual enrollment, and we identify what is our trend starting to look like so we can build in the future year enrollment projections. We also take a look at unduplicated percentage. The year-to-year we've been analyzing is to make sure that where we're going next is something that's sustainable. And so the 3-year rolling average that we're currently experiencing has us projected to be right around 60%. And so that's something we've consistently take into consideration on an annual basis from a year-to-year, but then we also take a look at the prior 2 years to make sure that we're seeing a consistent 3-year rolling average. This upcoming budget is going to be the first year where we see the 3-year rolling average actually hit the 60% mark. Health and welfare is the next thing we take a look at, and monitoring those cost escalations. Getting a year away completely from the pandemic, a year and a half-ish, we're recognizing some health and welfare increases, and so we're consistently monitoring those and working with our partners to see how we can offset some of those costs as we are experiencing some increases in the health and welfare industry. Then we also look at STRS and PERS. These are projected rates provided to us by both entities. STRS is controlled more so by a predetermined rates that had been board approved legislatively years ago. And we also take a look at PERS, which is done on an actuarial basis, and their board has a little bit more flexibility and they make adjustments according to their actuarial reports. And then we also look at including any salary agreements that we may have in our collective bargaining agreements. And so with our current agreements that we have, we've also included those in our current year budget as well as our second year. Our third year currently doesn't have any sort of collective bargaining agreements that we can apply, so we just keep step and column concepts in those calculations. And then lastly, we also have to take into consideration the reserve fund, which is the 10% reserve cap that's state mandated. And with that, we'll talk a little bit about what, just as a reminder of what the reserve cap is. That was Proposition 2 as it was initially introduced in 2014. Then it was revamped in 2017 by Senate Bill 751, which ultimately allowed some districts to have some exemptions, but really what it did was change the reserve cap from 6% to 10%. How does this reserve cap get triggered? Well, there's 4 different test factors that happen, that are required to happen simultaneously for this to actually be in effect. The maintenance factor is what they called the wall of debt at one point, had to be paid down, currently is paid down. We have to be in a test 1, what they call test 1 environment in Proposition 98, which doesn't really happen often. In the past couple of years it has. And so we're still currently in test 1. The state has to be able to fully fund average daily attendance and the COLA, which they're committed to do again this year. And then our capital gains for the state has to be greater than 8% of the general fund. And all 4 of these factors continue to exist in our upcoming budget year, and therefore is going to require us to adopt another resolution that would commit a reserve cap. And if we recall, back in 21-22, we were having conversations around what those board priorities would look like for us. As 22-23 was the first year in which we had to implement this resolution. And those board priorities consisted of future salary agreements, medical benefits, specifically around health and welfare, program enhancements, facilities, and then economic uncertainties greater than the state's minimum 3% reserve requirement. In the current year budget, we are applying one of those items to future salaries, which is in our collective bargaining agreements, which is the one-time payments that we'll be doing towards the end of next school year. We're also using some of our board priorities to cover the health and welfare cost increases that we experienced in this upcoming school year. The program enhancements is another place where we're going to support students next year with our, you heard Mr. Zamora refer to our program specialists, our mental health wellness team. We have some athletic trainers that we're adding to the program. So there's a variety of program enhancements that we're implementing with our board priorities for the reserve funds. Our budget assumptions that we used for the 23-24 budget, as we were preparing for the revenue component side of that budget, as taking a look at our projected enrollment, our projected ADA, projected unduplicated percentage, the projected COLA, and then finally STIRS and PERS, as far as those assumptions go for our LCFF calculator. And so here is a slide that kind of breaks those data components down. I've included our current year on the top row, which is 22-23, just as a point of reference. And then the next 3 years is really the adopted budget for 23-24, and then that 2 out years, which is our multi-year projection, right? So in October 6, 2023, this was what we call our CBEDS Day, which is our California Basic Educational Data System. And this is where we report our student enrollment count. At the time, October 6, 2023, we had about 13,173 students. So fast forward to, we're preparing now the budget for 23-24. During the period 2 reporting time, April 7, 2023, we pulled down our current enrollment at that time, and we ran some numbers to identify what our average daily attendance was in that moment and submitted that to the state. That was kind of the jumping off point for us to figure out what our new enrollment projections could be for the upcoming school year, and that's where that 12,838 number comes from. And then the last 2 that you see, 24-25 and 25-26 school years, those numbers decreased by about 150 per year, and that's really that going back to that 5-year trend analysis. And again, this is all a conservative approach to how we're building our budget. As we start to gather more actual data, we will adjust these numbers accordingly and update those as we get into those interim reporting periods throughout the school year. Projected ADA, similar approach. We took a look at our P2 reporting period in 22-23, and we landed at 94.19% for our attendance for this year. And so that kind of just reminded us that we're still kind of navigating the pandemic in a way in which our ADA has not gone back to normal, which is our past experience is typically around 96% and a little bit greater. And so, again, a conservative approach. Will we experience this again next year? And so that's why we started off the 23-24 budget at a 94% average daily attendance, and then every year we grow it about 0.5%, getting to 95% in the last year that you see on the data. And that really is, again, that conservative approach. Now, if we're starting to see a trend that says something different, we will update these numbers and reflect that as we get into the interim reports throughout the school year. The projected unduplicated count, the 22-23 school year, you'll see that number at 54%. And the reason why that's there is because we're going to be dropping off a year, or we had a year that was a low unduplicated year. It was in the mid-40s, I believe. And that's the reason why our 3-year rolling average was 54% this year. But this school year and the year before, we hit 60%. And we anticipate to hit it again this year. And a lot of that has to do with our the work that we've done, not only at our school sites with data confirmation, but early on, as we were in the pandemic, our food services team developed a flyer to talk about our data confirmation. Our lunch program is more than a meal. And so they really highlighted the additional benefits around what this does for the school district. And so, and the other thing that we feel really confident about our number being around 60% is because our feeder districts are also very similar in that. And so when we were below that, when I first came on board, I thought, oh, that seemed kind of off and we probably should dig into this a little bit more. And sure enough, the data is exactly what our feeder districts are doing. And this is really a kudos to our site administrative team, to our food services department, who did a lot of legwork in making sure that we are identifying our families appropriately. The next item that we took a look at, again, and I put some in parentheses just so we understand the differences between the two. Right now, for the statutory COLA, the current year, the COLA that was funded was 6.56, but what's projected for the out years is listed on the bottom 3 rows, which is currently 8.22 for the upcoming school year, and then the last 2 years, 3.94 and 3.29. The 2 out years fluctuate a little bit more, and the good news, though, is that both school services and Department of Finance, which is who the governor uses, are saying the very same thing. So that's a little reassuring because they typically don't always match. So that kind of puts us in a really good place to know that they're seeing the same information and projecting those COLAs. And then moving on to STIRS. Again, this is an interesting column here. STIRS is controlled by a legislative approval process, and so their board has very limited authority to make adjustments. But the number that you're seeing here at 19.1% is a number that has grown into that. Since 2013, that number has consistently grown every single year. And in some years, it was offset by a governor's contribution to minimize that cost, but eventually it still got to this 19-point number, which was forecasted by CalSTRS board. What was an interesting fact that I saw recently was that prior to this 2013, when that first increase happened, there hadn't been a change to the employee contribution since 1986. So it's grown almost double since actually a little bit more than double, since the inception of that first board, that board action that increased it to this 19.1 number. So we're managing it, and we're hoping that eventually that they catch up. I think 2040 is their estimate. Once they get to that date, hopefully they'll correct it and reverse the concept and get it back down to 8.25, but we'll cross our fingers on that one. 2040 is the estimate. Yeah, that's their actuarial report. CalPERS, on the other hand, is done on an annual basis. They do an actuarial report every year, and based on that actuarial report, the board of CalPERS has the autonomy to make adjustments. So they don't have to go through the legal hurdles or legal legislative laws to make those adjustments. So CalPERS has that little bit more flexibility. Their goal too is by 2040 to right size their fund. And so hopefully by then we'll see some adjustments and see some stuff coming back down. But in the meantime, we're projecting it in our budget and accounting for those costs associated with it. And so in the LCF calculator, there's required data, and that required data is based around COLA, enrollment, ADA, and unduplicated percentage, as well as estimated property tax. The COLA typically will plug in from the governor's May revise, and we also confer with school services. We'll also use district projections for plugging in those enrollments, and that's why the enrollment data that I was showing you is critical. Same thing with the ADA projections as well as the unduplicated. And then the estimated property tax is usually a county projection we receive from Orange County Department of Education, and we'll plug all that information in there. In the end, as you saw in Mr. Zamora's slide, you saw the total revenue being $236 million, the LCF revenue coming in at $184 million, which represents 78% of our budget. So it's really important that we keep an eye on what's going on in the state, because again, as the state goes, so do we. And if the budget, and 78% of our revenue comes from the state, it's really important that we make sure we're managing that from that lens. And it comes to us like this, and it's broken down. The LCFF calculator breaks it down in different categories, right? The column on the left is the estimated actuals to close out the school year, and the column on the right is what we're projecting for the adopted budget. And really, if you just go to the line that's titled concentration and our supplemental and concentration, this is where you'll see the biggest change. And that's where you saw Mr. Zamora pointing out all those resources being used in the supplemental concentration in the LCAP. It's a big increase for us of about, what is that? About $8 million. And so that's where most of our money increase came from this year. Also, we got a healthy COLA, but the COLA itself it doesn't correlate for percentage exactly, because it's offset by enrollment and ADA and things of that nature. But really the big change here for us is the concentration line, which is something we've not seen in the past. And so here it is again broken down, though as combined revenues, you see the LCFF calculator listed up top, our LCFF funding listed up top, which is the $184 million. And then we have federal revenue coming in at $20 million, other state revenue $16 million. The federal is still ESSER dollars. The other state revenue is still those one-time dollars, the arts discretionary grant, as well as learning recovery grant. So all those dollars are still listed in there. It was listed based on the governor's May revise as well. So it does have the reduction that we talked about, the possibility of. So total overall in this slide, we're showing $237 million. And there's just a pie chart that kind of goes back to the percentage of each of those funds. And then what does it look like on the expense side? And here's a breakdown of certificated salaries all the way through capital outlay projects. Again, this is a reference to a lot of the things that we're doing, especially in the capital outlay, is focusing on our facilities and making sure that we have facilities for our program enhancements that we're focused on this year. But going back up to certificated salaries, classified salaries, and employee benefits, this takes into consideration our collective bargaining agreements with our labor partners as well. And so on this slide, you'll see the total combined revenue from the general fund, a breakdown on estimated actuals of where we anticipate to close for our revenue for this year, and then where we anticipate to be for the adopted budget of 23-24. Again, the biggest change here is the LCFF calculator. You see we go from 166 to 184. That is really a result of the COLA that we're anticipated to receive, as well as the increase in the supplemental and concentration dollars. And then here's a side-by-side of our estimated actuals to close out the year on expenditures, and then where we anticipate to be for our adopted budget. Again, the certificated classified benefits, you'll see the increase from one year to the next. That goes back to our collective bargaining agreements, increased salaries, increased costs associated with some of our benefits. But again, I want to also point out the capital projects on on the row listed 6,000 capital projects. You can see we're putting a lot of those one-time dollars to use and upgrading our facilities to make sure that they can provide support for our program enhancements that we're working on. And then here's the multi-year projection broken down for the adopted budget. You see the revenue line listed on top. We go from 237 to 229 to 228. The reason why you see a reduction there is really expending down, or not, the anticipation of not receiving any additional one-time dollars, and that's really a COLA-only world, so to speak. All the one-time dollars we're receiving through 2023-24, we don't anticipate them in the out years. So we're in a COLA-only world in the out years, and that's why you see a decrease. You see our expenditure lines kind of flatten out. It takes into consideration the increases to our labor partners' collective bargaining agreements. But then you look at the row surplus or deficit and ask the question, well, why the deficit, and why is it right around $5 to $6 million in the out years? And the answer to that is that we're spending down those one-time dollars. The one-time dollars expire through 27-28, so we have time to spend them down. And it's really a planned program deficit that we're spending down those one-time dollars. But as you can see, we still have a healthy ending fund balance in all 3 years. In year 3, it gets as low as $55.5 million, but still a healthy reserve. The state required 3% is in the $7 million range now. But as you can see, the reserve fund, that 10% state mandate in year 1 listed here is $25.1 million. And that goes back to the reserve cap that we were talking about in previous slides. But when it's all said and done, the unassigned ending fund balance is $16.8 million, and it ends in year 3 at $16.3 million. So still a healthy unassigned reserve balance that we have. But I just kind of want to break down what the ending fund balances mean for us. If we take a look at the ending fund balance, the restricted part of that is specifically around those one-time dollars that we get. It's specifically around special ed, lottery, those kinds of things. That's what makes up the $17 million that you see on year 1. And then the other $25 million is the 10% state mandate. Then the 3% reserve is $7.2 million. And again, the unassigned is $16.8. If you add those up, it gets you to the $67 million ending fund balance. And I listed those for all 3 years. As you can see, the unassigned balance stays pretty consistent, right? And so that really means that our planned structural deficit is doing what we anticipate it to be doing, is spending down those restricted dollars where they need to be and managing our reserve funds appropriately. But just kind of give you a breakdown of what that $17 million really consists of. You have the A through G grant. The board took action on that already, and we have June 30th, 2026 to spend those funds down. We have the educator effectiveness, which also the board took action on already. Again, June 30th, 2026 to spend that down. And then the discretionary block grant, that's the arts, music, et cetera. The learning recovery block grant, and these are reflected on the projected reductions that we anticipate from the governor. And so you see those two, we have until June 30th, 2026, and respectively June 30th, 2028. But the majority of our restricted funds really lie in these categories right here. This doesn't add up to $17 million because the rest of it is typical restricted fund that we normally have, whether it's local reserves, lottery, those kinds of things. That's our typical restricted balances. So these are our one-time dollar restricted fund balances. And so as we continue, oops, I forgot to reference that. Oh yeah, I did. So these were just the identified with the reductions that we got from the governor's May revise. And again, those will be adjusted when we get to the first interim once we know exactly what the governor actually adopts. So next steps for us is to continue these considerations here is to monitor the COLA, to monitor our one-time state and federal allocations, for example, ESSER $3, the Learning Recovery Grant, to continue to monitor our program enhancements that we've added, monitor the health and cost escalations that we saw, pretty good increase this year, but we feel like that was that getting out of the pandemic situation, but we'll continue to monitor that, work with our team to make sure we mitigate those increases, continue to keep an eye on inflation, the supply chain, and then the possibility of a recession. People keep talking about that. When, how long, and how severe. All that stuff will determine how we manage the budget as we move forward. And so for us, next steps is step one is to recommend recommend approval of the 23-24 adopted budget at the June 13th board meeting. We will also recommend the resolution for the reserve cap as well at the same meeting. And next, step 2 would be to analyze the governor's final adopted budget for the fiscal year 23-24. And then, if necessary, based on the governor's final adopted budget, is to make an adjustment at the 45-day revised window, and that would be at our August 8th board meeting. But I don't anticipate that happening just because the final things that are kind of lingering out there don't really feel like they'll have an impact. But if the COLA comes in drastically different, that will probably cause us to come back at the August 8th board meeting. Step 4 would to be work on year-end closing. That typically starts in July for the 22-23 school year. And then step 5 is to work with our auditors as well simultaneously to finalize the financial audit for the 22-23 school year. And then we'll be back in December with the board for the first interim that talks about the budget and expenditures through October 31st, 2023. And so just the fiscal solvency statement in submitting the 23-24 adopted budget report, the Board of Trustees understands its fiduciary responsibility to maintain fiscal solvency for the current and subsequent 2 fiscal years. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you to our business services team. Fantastic job in prepping today's adopted budget and all the work associated with what we do up in business services. And that concludes my report, and I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Board members?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you for that very clear report. I appreciated it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And your slides are better.
Marilyn,
But we had this, so it was good. Thank you very
I did 2 things, right? I printed one of these and I try to check my fonts.
You did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to ask about, you're saying we went to 61% on the free lunch. How much money are we getting extra? Because,
yeah, it's about an $8 million increase from the last school year.
Okay, and are those restricted funds or we can use them for other things?
Yeah, they're focused on the students that generated the dollars. And so it's not necessarily a restricted category, but we go through an LCAP process and develop how we are going to spend those dollars for those students that earned it. So it's not necessarily a restricted terminology, but we have guidelines on how we should be using those funds based on what's important to the district. It's local control in essence.
They're targeted for specific student groups, and then our outcomes need to show improvements.
Yeah, because we have 58% Hispanic children, 22% Asian, 14% white, and 4% other. And I'm just wondering how much are we spending on all those subgroups? And you're saying they're not restricted, so are we going to be doing other things with that money for those groups who are contributing to that fund?
And for clarification, the unduplicated count comes from which area?
Yeah, the unduplicated count comes from us identifying our foster youth, our English language learners, as well as our low income. And the low income really comes from the data confirmation piece that we do, so it's an income threshold. So those are the groups that typically we identify. We don't identify specifically by the identification of the group.
Yeah, but 61% are getting the funding in, and those are our low income children, right?
That's
okay,
correct.
so I was just wondering what we're spending on those groups. It could be the white kids, it could be the black, I don't know. But I'm just saying we'll be spending on those children.
Absolutely, and and it's driven by our LCAP process.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have a question, but I have a kind of like a comment. No, I just want to say thank you and your team for doing a good job with this report. It's very precise, and I love, kind of like what Echo Maryland said. I love the slides, especially the pie graphs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a pie graph person, so I actually live it, and so thank you for that. But it is kind of difficult to consider what is the actual cost of running the districts, given that we don't. The inflation rate is an issue, possible recession is an issue, and supply chain. With all those, it could go up at any time, and so it is very difficult. So thank you and your team for keeping an eye on this.
Yep. Thank you.
I have one question, and I think I know the answer to this. I just want to be clear. For ADA, we have the 3 options: current year, or looking at the past year if that's higher, or the 3-year rolling average. Each year we can exercise one of those options, right? We're not locked in to a 3-year rolling average year after year, for example.
That's correct. So in the LCAP calculator, we plug in, it has historical data, and we plug in current and future projection data. It automatically calculates for us, and it tells us which one we're using.
Which is the best option.
And right now, it's pointing to the 3-year rolling average for us.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. On that same page on this, the reserve fund, the 10% mandate that you're going to bring the resolution for.
Yes.
On the budget, that's the area at the bottom that says committed funds. Is that correct?
Yes, so if you, what slide is that?
Well, the slide, I don't know the slide number.
The one that's the multi-year projection slide, I have it broken down in there, like, year one shows the 10% being at 25.1 million.
Right.
And so that number is the one that's referenced to us being compliant with the 10% reserve.
And if someone were to pull up the actual budget and they scroll down to essentially the bottom line, that would be the area that says committed, not unassigned.
Correct. If they looked at the full budget, they'll see it in the multi-year projections, and it calls it out as a committed line item.
Good. I just wanted to clarify that for all our viewers. And then, it seems like I had one more. I apologize. I've lost the page. And bear with me. I'm sorry. I should have turned down the corners or something. I'm not sure I'm going to find it in a quick second here. I know what it was, even though I don't find it. I liked how in the narrative of the budget itself, it was pointed out that it was not a structural deficit. So even though you see those, and you mentioned that here, but for those who might look at the budget and say, oh no, they're spending beyond their means, the answer, it was right there clearly in the narrative, so no one had to try to figure it out. So I really appreciated the call out that was not a structural deficit. These are one-time monies that are being spent that kind of skews, for lack of a better word, the way that the deficit looks. So thank you for making that clear, because often we hear people say, oh, they must have a deficit because they're spending beyond their means, and that's not what's happening. And to echo Chester, I really like how you're keeping an eye on things, and that projected unassigned balance, which is go crazy, this is the money you got. We don't go crazy, thanks to you. So I appreciate that very much. We are having a public hearing, so I will be now opening the meeting for a public hearing. If anyone has any comments, please come to the podium and state your name prior to making comments. So public hearing is now open. Hearing only crickets. No, I'm just kidding. Since no one has come forward or turned in a blue card, I declare the public hearing closed. And thank you again, Ruben, and your team. Really appreciate it. For our consent calendar, there are no confidential items on the agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent calendar for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion approved.
Is the motion approved? Is there a second? So moved and seconded. Discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 5-0. Any comments from the board?
Well, I just have to jump on the bandwagon and thank Mr. Hernandez for his wonderful presentation. I feel like I say this every time you present, but as a non-money oriented person, you present it in a way that makes it easy to understand, and I appreciate that. So thank you, and great job to you and your team.
Dr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, thank you, President Foley, members of the board, and thank you, Ruben Hernandez. Really a lot of information tonight, especially with respects to how the LCAP comes together in the budget and how they really are intended to fit together by the state. And I really appreciate the team and the way that we do communicate all of this to our community. My last comment is we're officially on summer board meeting. So starting next week, we'll be in a little more business casual, and in July, so those in attendance might see us without ties and dressed up. So happy summer board meeting.
So
Absolutely.
you may. Can I go scrubs? It's even
If you're coming straight from.
I'll stay comfortable with you. Do what you need to do. Okay. I will not be wearing scrubs.
No, me neither.
They're very comfortable. It's almost like pajamas.
We will be, oh, my mic is on, good. I probably don't need it. We will be recessing to closed session, and then after the conclusion of our closed session, we will be reporting out. Thank you to all who are here this evening. Appreciate it, and have a good evening. We're going to close session this time.